Welcome back, everyone, to episode 19 of Before the Tones Drop podcast. Super excited today. We got a former Sioux City Assistant Fire Chief and current Fire Chief at Johnston Grimes Fire Department, Chief Jim Clark. Chief, thank you very much for taking the time to come up with us today, especially making the drive on your Friday evening. So, first of all,
he came up just in time to drop his application off for Sioux City then, right?
No, I don't think that's going to be happening.
No, that is the first question that Baker wrote on me for you is, any interest in the Chief's position?
No, I've got about 12 months left before I retire, and so, no.
You did that bid. You're done with that bit there.
Yeah.
True.
Were you in the running last time in 2008 for
I
the
was.
Chief's position?
I
Okay.
was, yes.
And then, at what point did you decide, being a chief is something I really want to do in my career?
Probably about 4 years or so before that. So when Chief Hamilton retired, there was a process, and I was in that process. And they brought in Chief Greg Martin from out of town. And he was chief here for about 2 years, and then he left, and then they ran another process. Chief Hamilton actually came back kind of did an interim thing for a while. Then they ran another process, and then Chief Everett got promoted at that time.
Gotcha.
Were you guys here when Chief Clark was still here?
Yeah.
Okay. Ship, but you weren't.
I did not. I never
Ben
worked with
wasn't.
Chief
No,
Clark.
Ship
We met for the
Just
first time
started.
today.
I think I was probably on probation yet, and then just got off probation when you left.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah, because you were still, I think when I took the CPAT, it was Combat Challenge, so when I took it, you were still training officer then, before you got assistant chief. So.
Yeah.
Jeez.
We kind of came in at a weird angle in terms of questions.
Well, you started it off,
yeah,
so
I know.
it's because of you, so don't blame anyone else here.
So we'll circle back to the beginning.
We do that a lot here. You'll find.
That's all right.
Chief, where did you grow up at?
So I grew up in Sioux City. I was a lifelong resident until I got the chief's job in Johnston and Grimes. So
Okay. What part of Sioux City, school district wise?
a little bit of everywhere. Started up on the north side, went to Lincoln, and then North Middle for 1 year, and then we moved out to Morningside. And
Okay.
so then I went to what was Hayworth at the time, which is now the East Middle, and then East High.
And what did your parents do?
So my dad did a lot of different things. When he was younger, he was a milkman here in Sioux City, back when they used to have the milk boxes on the front porch and delivered milk. And then he did a few different things, but for probably 25 years or more, he sold real estate towards the end of his career before he retired.
So no one really in the fire service in your family that sparked an interest for you?
No. And it was kind of weird in the fact that I went to Morningside College, and I studied criminal justice there. And then when I graduated, I started applying for law enforcement jobs. DCI and some different positions, and then I saw the civil service exam open up for the fire department. I thought, oh, well, this will be a good practice for the police department, because it'll have to be pretty similar for civil service. Well, then I ended up scoring well enough. I got on the list, I got interviewed, and I ended up on the final list. And then I thought, wow, I don't really know much about the fire department. I better start asking around. And Captain Don Murphy lived right next door to my parents out in Morningside. And so I went over, had a nice conversation with him, and the more he talked about it, the more I became interested in it. I thought, this is certainly something worth trying out. So then I had my chief's interview, and that was one of the questions they had. They said, well, we see you got a criminal justice degree, we don't want to hire you and then just have you waiting for a cop job. And I said, well, no, I said, the more I've looked into it, the more I think, this is probably a better fit for me. And it has been. So I've got almost 41 years in the career right now.
Gracious.
So
That's a run. What year was that hiring list you were on?
So that would have been in 83.
Wow.
Yep, 1983.
Was that Chief Hamilton?
No. It was prior to Chief Hamilton. Chief Hamilton, believe it or not, was driving Engine 3 when I got hired.
Oh, wow.
Was that maybe like Lovis? Or
yeah.
Was that before? Was that Lovis?
Yeah, it was Chief Levis.
Gotcha. Who is your probationary partner?
Well, there was 5 of us all happened at the same time, got hired. Dick Reagan,
Okay.
Brian Porterfield, Rudy Lee, and Dan Lenz.
Wow.
And you'd be the last one of all of those.
Yep.
I was
Yeah,
curious
I
if
was
there was
one of
anyone
that's still working.
still around.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, they all were smarter than me. They all got out a long time ago.
How old were you?
Would have been 23.
23.
Goodness
so you're
gracious.
plenty young and
Strapping young lad.
Yeah.
able to
That's
have
right.
a long run at it. What was kind of your first couple years in the fire service like, and what was the first welcome to the fire service moment where you kind of it hit you? Oh, this is what the job is, and I either like this or I need to get out of here.
So I think that first week of probation, Bob Bridget was the training officer at the time, and we had a training tower just down the street from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the time there was actually a metal building, and it had a classroom in it, and his office was there, and that's where we started. And so the crews would actually come down and do different evolutions with us, and the more we got into the hands-on and being outside and doing all the work, the more I really started to enjoy it.
Good deal. Any calls or fires that first year that really stood out and said, I really like this?
Yeah, we had a few. We had several fires. I remember one was over not too far up the street on 14th Street, and I remember it was a basement fire, and we'd gone in. I think I was on the truck at that time, and we were down in the basement, and what we didn't realize is that they were cleaning something with a can of gasoline, and it started off, flashed off when it hit the water heater in the basement. And so we were down there kind of mopping up, and at that time it was pretty common practice to pull the 1.5-inch hand line back out and bring the booster in for mop up. Mm-hmm. And so we were downstairs and we were cleaning up, and I think the booster or something happened and knocked over the gas can again, and it spilled, and we didn't realize it. And then all of a sudden the whole basement kind of flashed off, and here I am looking at these little tiny 12-inch windows trying to figure out how am I going to get up there, how am I going to fit through there with my air pack on. And I remember, I think he was a lieutenant at that time, Denny Hageman, who soon became captain not too long after that. But I remember him standing there on that stairway and fighting all that fire, and I mean, he saved us from probably ended up getting some burns down in the basement, because at that time we had 3/4 boots and long coats, and we didn't even have bunker pants. So
SCBAs were everyone wore
it
one
was
at the time?
Well, when I started they were kind of voluntary. I remember a few mattress fires and everything, and I'm thinking, man, how do these guys go in there and put up with this stuff? And so it wasn't too long after that they kind of became mandatory. But yeah, it was a whole different world.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally hung on the tailboard of engine 3. It was
That's
just
really cool.
it was just a single cab, short little engine, and we had to hang on to the tailboard, and we were dressing, buckling our coat, pulling our boots up and everything as we left
like
the station.
just a hang. So not like when we had the snorkel and you still had the Class 1 harness, so you were at least clipped.
No.
You were like,
No, we
it was
didn't
just-
even,
just
when we
hanging.
started, we didn't even have it.
Love it. Gosh dang.
I say, can you just talk more about what, like the fire department really was like in the 80s and early 90s, and just like some of the
See,
big
I've been trying to put
differences?
together a staff action to go back to roll-up boots.
Yeah.
But
What was like?
That one might not make it.
What was your probation? Like now the guys are 3 or 4 weeks and stuff. But you guys, because you guys had the old building on 18th Street, the tower for the old tower building for a little bit, which was only occupied for just a few years, right? Until they kind of became structurally unsound.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I guess what was your probation like? The first, I mean, was it 3 weeks and then on shift, or how did?
Yeah,
probation
it was like 3 weeks, and then we went on shift, and I remember putting on the SCBA every shift and doing housework and climbing up the stairs, and old Station 3 was really unique. I mean, we all just loved it, and when I talk about doing watch and pulling the bed out from under the stairs and sleeping down on the apparatus floor, people
man,
just
that's
look
so cool.
People just look at me like, what? You slept on the apparatus floor? And I'm like, yeah. And so, that's probably some of my favorite times. The old aerial that we had to string the hose up the aerial and hook it up to the play pipe. And the outriggers and the front jack were all manual. So you'd pull a pin and pull them down, and then we had to hand screw them down onto the the pads, and then somebody'd have to crawl underneath the front bumper and unpin the front one, and then drop that down and then screw it down, and that was how we set the truck.
Was that the American LaFrance?
Yeah.
Is that what that one was? Yeah. That was a mid-mount?
Cool.
Was that a mid-mount?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty neat.
100
very
foot,
neat.
Yeah.
100-foot stick, yeah.
Yeah.
I love hearing when things are like how different things were, 40 years ago. But I always love when hear how things are the same too. In terms of just showing up to the training officer your first week of work, that's still how things
still haven't changed.
Things still happen the same way today.
Yep.
And your first 3 or 4 weeks, and so anytime you want to talk about what that was like your first 10 years, I love hearing that, the differences, and then as well as what's the same. That would feel free to go on forever about that.
I could just listen about the cokes and boots and riding tailboards. That's man, I could listen to that all day.
I was looking at like the picture at the new picture and stuff that's there, as far as like how many guys, when you look at back, we just had the 2024 picture or whatever, and then the 14 going back and stuff. And even when I came on, so the 04 picture to now, and how many guys are still left from even just 04. And then I thought about the snorkel, which was the reserve truck when I started, and how many guys, like, so it's myself and I'm maybe like the next group of probies behind us that got, but outside of that, like, that was it. That was the last rig. That was the tailboard that you could ride the tailboard and then no more. So I mean, there's like this whole generation of newer guys that never got it. I feel like fortunate that even for that short little bit to, that you at least got to experience that really that old school kind of firefighting thing, and just like on TV and got to ride the tailboard. That was, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's a neat thing. But yeah, with, being so then for you guys then at old threes, and so I mean that was still your boots and the actual like bunker pants, I guess, so those were next to the bed upstairs when you're sleeping, because even old ones, when I started, old ones, old fours, trying to remember where else, maybe even at threes and stuff, we still brought our boots and everything and put them right next to your bed and stuff, and jumped right into them until they're like, that's probably bad.
Yeah, it's probably wonder that we didn't all die of cancer young. But, we didn't have a lot of the awareness, I think, at that time about how dangerous, the carcinogens and all that was. And so I'm very thankful that we've kind of stepped up our game as far as taking care of our people. And I mean, we're in the middle of building a new station in Grimes, and we really spent a lot of time. We kind of patterned some of it after Des Moines' newest station, Station 11, where we have gross decon on the far side of the apparatus bay. And then before you actually enter the living area of the station, there's another bathroom and shower, and that's where the laundry room is. And so the idea is that everybody will have their own little kind of ditty bag or whatever, and shorts and flip-flops and T-shirt and that kind of stuff, so that they can take all their gear, do a gross decon, throw it in the washer extractor, and then go across the apparatus bay, take off their uniform, throw it right in the wash, jump in the shower, and get all cleaned up before they would ever step back into the rest of the living area of the fire station. So a lot of intentional thought went into trying to reduce the amount of contaminants that actually come into the living area of the station.
Sure.
That's the thought process of an old hazmat guy, like,
going through decon.
Yeah.
So
who are your officers on probation?
Yeah.
So I started out with Doug May and Denny Hageman. And then they decided, probably about, 5 or 6 months in, they switched the captains around. They moved them around to different shifts. And so then I ended up with Daryl Greeno, probably the last half of probation.
Okay.
And then just post probation, and then kind of floating into your career, riding the back and driving. What was Or I guess can you just give us kind of a timeline of where you went throughout your career and
So that was
up
so you
until
said
we-
83. So
Johnston.
we actually had more guys on the job then. The department was bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 83 because it was closer to 140, 150 firefighters at that time, wasn't it?
I'm trying to think of what the number was. They had already closed one of the stations, so there used to be another station 4 up on.
27th.
Yep. 20. No. It was,
Well, it was 14,
it was
14 Nebraska.
Yeah,
was
14
over.
Nebraska.
That was Forest.
Yeah,
and then they moved down the way because that was
Yeah, and then Station 9.
You're thinking
was
of
up
9s
there
on Chambers and
27th.
27th.
yeah, that
Chambers,
was Station 9 there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which one was Station 2?
That was at the airport.
Airport.
Yeah.
Airport.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was, when I started, we were still staffing the airport, I think with 2 people down there. So we did have a few more people than we started kind of through attrition losing numbers. And then I'm not sure where you guys are at now. I think when I left, we were right around the 105 or something like that.
Yeah, so I think on the fire side, so now with the new approval and stuff for the EMS division, the different staffing we're going to do, it's the first time in like 40 years that we've actually added personnel. So I think we're down to 107 or 115 uniformed, and then, in staff position, then EMS division and stuff. But we had slowly whittled down, and I mean, even since 02, I think we've lost 5 or 6 positions since 02 through attrition. You're assistant chief position being one of them. And then, but yeah, this is the first time with the 4 we had, plus the 4 we're hiring, plus, it's the first time we've ever added on the fire division side. So we're going the other way now, finally.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was the reasoning for that, for the layoffs at the time?
A lot of it was budget.
Yep.
Just, us and police being the largest share of the general fund. And,
Cities were struggling in the 80s. And
every time there's a major downturn in the market, it trickles down to local government. So, the 80s, and then again, after the big stock market crash, 2008. So 2009, 2010, 11, those were pretty rough years for most cities as well.
Okay. Yeah, I figure that had to be some sort of rough period for the city, or if they just looked at things and said the fire department's overkill right now. Because our call numbers have gone up, and we've done it with the same number.
Budget.
For so
it takes
long.
a lot of money to operate a fire department, as a chief knows for sure. But
It doesn't generate any revenue.
it's one to cut.
It's like a black hole. You just throw money into it. We don't generate any. We don't generate money.
Much.
It's just like it's
not
part of
much.
tax dollars. It just takes a big chunk. When you look at some of the budgets, just on manpower. I mean, ours is pretty big. When you look at budget-wise, just on manpower alone, that's not even equipment and maintenance and things like that. You know, when you're talking millions of dollars, and that's a department our size. You look at some place like Des Moines, and then look at numbers like Chicago, FDNY, things like that. Where how many millions of dollars just for personnel that they spend on a budget? It's incredible.
And thank
what a fire
God our
department costs
cities
to run.
take value in that, though.
Yeah.
And spend the money they do on the public safety that they do in Johnston and Sioux City, because there were very tough times there for everyone, and we have a really good city with a good head on its shoulders and give us what we need and give the citizens what they need. So.
Yeah. Were any firefighters laid off?
No, I think all of it was done through nutrition. But even when I started, I mean, it seemed like every year there was talks of, maybe you'll make it, and maybe they'll have to lay you off.
They always said
that went
you
on
better
for
make
about 2 or 3 years.
10 down the seniority line.
Yeah.
That way, if they close a house, you can still have a job.
That was the safety
You're
line.
good. Yeah.
So just kind of take us through post probation, your career wise, floating fourth, assignments, things along.
So like everybody, you get off probation, and you kind of lose that security blanket of Station 3 and the people that you started with and spent a whole year with, and so then you start moving out to the stations and worked in basically all the stations. I remember new Station 8 was just being built when I got off probation, and so I remember the old Station 8 right on Riverside Boulevard, going out and picking up laundry, and did that just a few times before they ended up opening new Station 8. So
when you saw it the first time, did you think it was pretty nice?
Oh yeah, yeah. Compared to the old station, it was really
compared
nice.
to the old station. Well, have you been out? Have you seen the new Station 8?
No, I haven't been out
So
there
then
since you
you'd be
guys
like,
added on. And
Yeah.
I haven't
all
either,
that,
Chief, so don't feel bad.
No, it's funny because I just happened, and it's
Yeah.
like you go out there now and you're like, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah, compared to the old one, yeah. But not knowing what the old one on the boulevard looked like. Yeah, I mean, seeing pictures, we got a couple of pictures, and it looked more. And it's hard to unless you knew what that was a station. I mean, you just drive by it, and it sits in the back. It's kind of like it kind of blends in really good. You'd never know that was an old
I
firehouse.
got a picture from someone that was working there the other day of one of the numerous members of wildlife that you get coming around your station, and I didn't even recognize the back of your guys' patio and station and stuff.
Yeah, it's
Completely
awesome.
different even than when I've been around. So.
Yeah, it feels so much like just open and bright, and you got to stop out and see it before you head back down to the other part of the state there.
All right.
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
No,
But yeah,
that's all right.
I think it's kind of really cool to hear.
Yeah. So got to see Station 7 was already built when I started. So, but 8's was brand new. About little after a year after I started. So anyway, yeah, just like everybody else, you get booted around to the different stations and you float for a while, and then pretty soon you get enough seniority, you get fourth on the truck, and then I was at Station 1, fourth on the snorkel down there at that time, and we always joked about how we were always so tempted on a fire call going up Grandview to just run around the side, pull your mask out of the box, set it on the tailboard, put it on, put the box back in before you reach the top.
Before you reach the top.
Oh,
The
man.
thing it was a dog. It really was.
Yeah,
You'd have little kids riding by on bicycles waving at you. It's like you're going code 3 to a run, and then they keep pedaling up the hill past you, and you're like, nothing I can do, kid.
Yeah. Why aren't you going faster?
Yeah.
Where are you going? To a fire. Why aren't you going faster?
Did you have a favorite place to work?
The double houses always seemed to be more fun. There was just more people, more things going on, and of course being downtown, you caught a lot more calls, and so I think most people always wanted to be at 1s or 3s and stayed busier and.
Sure.
So, and you're talking, really, 8s would have been new, but they would have been running out of old 5 still on Gordon Drive in Fairmont right there.
Yes.
6s wouldn't have had the remodel yet.
No.
That would have still been the real small 6s. I mean, that's, and 3s, of course, just, old 3s.
Yep. And Station 1 was the old ones when I started,
the old ones,
too.
yeah.
So cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. So it's like during your career, your time here, I mean, that's a lot of expansion of the city, too, because that whole Donner addition, everything down there wasn't here, Whispering Creek, all that. So, from then to now, I mean, really, if you think about it, it's, what are we at 40 some odd years? That's quite a bit of growth. I know now sometimes we look and think it's stagnant or slowed, but I mean, if you look big scale 40, 50 years, how much the city has grown, and even department wise, adding some stations and remodeling and building new and moving everything. It's quite a bit, if you look big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big was fire prevention at the time? Were fires pretty common?
We had a lot of fires.
Okay.
Had a lot of fires.
Well, America Burning had barely just happened back when he got off.
But no.
The battleground, the battle years in Chicago and all that stuff.
Yeah. But no, there was a lot of fires. I mean, we had a lot of big fires. I mean, and downtown is so different. I mean, there was a lot of large buildings downtown that burned. Some of them burned just prior to me coming on, but I remember a couple large warehouses that, we were out there all night with big 2.5-inch lines sitting on them out in the middle of the street, just kept throwing water, and
that's all you can do.
Yep.
What was like the climate, and maybe a little bit more sensitive subject, but because you came on just after Hen House, essentially the Hen House fire and stuff. So what was like the climate, I guess, or the, I guess people's feeling, or is not being on the department at that time, but I mean, was that very much still in the forefront of everybody's thoughts, when they're still going to fires and everything? I mean, what was that like coming on just after that happened?
Yeah, and some of the guys that I'd met and worked with, were survivors of the hen house. And so, yeah, there was times that, conversations would start and then people would shut it right down.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of somber days and nights, depending on, when we got back from a fire and who started talking about what. But yeah, Rusty Sewell, Pat O'Donnell, they were there, Rich Ewell. So there were still quite a few people that were there. There was a couple of people that retired right after that fire. So, but yeah, our group was kind of a replacement for some of the retirements and that. So,
Gotcha. Just overall, what kind of was the climate and culture of the fire department at the time?
It varied. We were pretty strong training, at Station 3. I wouldn't say that there was a strong training culture in all the stations. I think that really improved over the years, but there was a lot of pride in Station 1 and Station 3, and just because they fought most of the fires and they were on scene first. But a lot of the older guys tended to gravitate and put in cards and transfer out to the outhouses where it was less busy. But yeah, I think probably one of the greatest improvements I saw over time on the department was just the training culture, fitness culture. I think everybody kind of stepping up their game and realizing that, it's a profession and that you got to stay fit. And even though the number of fires went down, I think the culture of training and being prepared both physically, mentally, and trained increased over time.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're if you're doing it every night, then it probably there's not as much emphasis as today. If we'll go 2-3 shifts in a row with a fire, and then we'll touch nothing for 2 months. So I can definitely see that.
Yeah, that's where you learn most of your stuff, right? Was going to calls or going to fires. You learn most of it that way. Like, I messed up on that last one. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, and you just got to see a lot more and learn a lot more about fires. Sure. And, kind of the saving grace, I think, for a lot of us was the legacy construction, the full thickness 2x4s and 2x12 floor joists and all of that. And so even though we had a lot of fires, I think the construction of the homes that we were having the fires in kind of helped with a lot of that.
Yeah, time was on your guys' side.
Yeah.
Right?
That compartmentalization and everything. Yeah, you might have had a lot of balloon frame, and we still do, but yeah, just the structure itself was, all day long that, some of these houses that you could go in, 20, 40 minutes that people have even to get out of them versus 2 to 3 minutes on modern construction.
Yeah, I'd say we have the same amount of like fires in the same type of buildings, but all the things they fill them with now is just
Yeah.
So
Did you ever get a driving spot anywhere?
Very briefly. I got promoted with about 9 years on, so I didn't do much driving.
Where was your first promotion assignment?
Station 3.
Okay.
I was a lieutenant on Engine 3.
Right back into training.
Yep.
awesome.
Dick Reagan was my driver, and he seemed to catch a lot of fires when I went on vacation for some reason.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Kind of like DeRocher today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's because Dusty's in the car, though.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yep.
I forgot what I was going to ask. You got anything?
We were talking fires. That's all.
Yeah, I
that's
know.
all I know.
So how long did you spend as a lieutenant then down at Threes?
Oh, I don't remember. It was a while, and then I went out to Station 7, and then when I got promoted to captain, I went out to Station 8. So I was the hazmat captain out at 8
That's what I was going to ask. Was 8
for a number of years, yeah.
What was when did that switch take place from 7s, 8s doing hazmat?
Oh, Captain Deedy was out at 7s, and then they decided that 3 people wasn't enough, and so that's when they reached out and said, we're going to have more. But logistically, 3s would have been better because it was closer to train together.
Yeah.
But because 3s was the training station and 1s was awful busy, they just decided to make a decision that it would be Station 8. So we'd get together and train quite a bit. But
Did they in that one? Because I've talked to Deese. He stopped at Fours a few times and kind of talked about and starting and really like starting to build the hazmat program to kind of where we're at now, but laying the groundwork and getting some money together and starting this regional thing and doing and just kind of going with that. But I can't remember if he said if that was before or after Terra kind of that drove a lot of it and drove some of the money and stuff.
it was before that.
Okay.
And because they did have, we called it the old bread truck,
bread
because
truck,
it really
yeah.
was an old bread truck.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hammer 12. But yeah, we came a long ways, and Captain Dede really led that charge all by himself. He went to class, he learned a lot, he taught us a lot. He really worked on improving our capabilities and ordered equipment, and got us all set up to go to a lot of different schools. And so he was kind of the father of the Sioux City Fire Hazmat. So,
yeah. And now where we're at now.
yeah.
So that was your first exposure into into the hazmat stuff.
Yeah, other than just everybody being operations level. But
Okay.
yeah, when I went out, I was out at Sevens as a lieutenant with Captain Dede for a while, and then when I got promoted to captain, I went to Station 8.
Did you like hazmat initially?
I kind of thought it was a little fun, I guess, learning something different, and it was just kind of way different than normal firefighting, and so it was challenging, and I enjoyed a challenge. So
It's hard to fake a natural love for hazmat. I noticed. So
Well, you could tell the guys that like either get or like it, and the other guys that are like, I'm trying to like. It's like when your mom cooks something that you like you don't really like, but you don't know how to tell her like you don't like it, so you keep chewing it down, and then maybe one of these days it's like, it's kind of an acquired taste versus some people can just dig right in and be like, oh, this is great stuff I ever did. I ever ate. That's kind of what hazmat is.
That's a really
for
good
some,
analogy.
for some people.
would it be
like
similar to spam?
Yeah. Yeah, sound like yeah, pretty much. It's yeah. Either
You either
like
love
it or don't.
spam or you don't.
Or you don't. And it's trying to
So what years were your promotions, lieutenant and captain?
Oh, I don't even
Doing
remember.
that to him.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking like along the way if there were any significant calls or big moments in the department history that
So let's
in that period for you.
back to the real quick. Back to the hazmat real quick though. So because when you got into there, so it was just the bread truck, right? Because because the regional rig that didn't come in until what, like 98, right around 2000 or somewhere
in there, yeah.
And then when I came on, the bread truck was still there, but it didn't last very long. And then when we had the old dump truck, the Caterpillar that was Hammer 12, but with just the one hazmat rig, then did that move back and forth between 7s and 8s, or was
for a while there they realized that if Station 8 was going to be responsible for responding and setting up decon and running all the equipment, that they needed to have hands on, and so it did go back and forth for a while there until we got the new hazmat rig, and then and then the old bread truck stayed out at Station 8. So.
And now, and then that went away. Like I said, then we got the Caterpillar, it was an old dump truck. I mean, the cab, they didn't do anything with the cab. It was a dump truck on the inside, and they just painted, and they had a nice box on the outside.
Added a new box.
When did the regional team start then? When did that become a forefront for the department?
Trying to think. So,
because did
Jim
Robinson drive the regional part of it more?
Yes, he did. So
because was the state looking for places to take regions for that coverage? Or was it
well, there was kind of a push for all the counties to have some sort of a response, and so I think it kind of started in Des Moines, but all the hazmat teams were getting together on a regular basis and meeting, and they started the Iowa Hazmat Association, and so they started meeting, and then from there they kind of hatched the idea that maybe if they paid if they had the other counties pay something in, then they could make these contracts and start these regional agreements. And so I'm not sure exactly what year that started, but we were just one of many regional hazmat teams across the state. So,
Okay. I always kind of forget it.
Yeah.
Need refreshed on that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
well,
It's just kind of a normal for us,
Yeah.
you know. So
Right.
it's
It
just
wasn't always a
expected,
thing.
Always been a thing since I've been around. And
Yep.
Yeah, same here.
yeah, I'd say we probably had our own hazmat team for
yeah,
10 years before it became regional.
sure.
Gotcha.
So,
Where should we go to?
A lot of
next?
responsibility though, right? When that came around, just because you were covering more counties and like we're expected to be the end all be all kind of for hazmat incidents
So
now.
that's why Ben works so hard and studies so hard.
Yeah.
'Cause he knows one of these days he'll be in the seat.
you
when
put
we gotta
Ben and
go out to,
studying in the same
we got to go out to
sentence
Storm
and
Lake, and they're going to be looking at
Already
him
lost.
like, hey,
the
you're
pipe,
the guy.
pipeline emergency.
Yeah.
That'll be the
So I
day.
think we're going to do that for a class in like October or something. We're going to do something. Put
lots
Ben
of
up in front
pictures for
everybody.
Ben. Lots of pictures.
Yeah,
but yeah,
teach
Jim
everybody
Allen
about
was
pipeline
actually the
safety.
assistant chief that kind of started that whole program because both Brad and I failed to pass the assistant chief test that time around, and so Jim Allen started out with that, and then when there was a retirement, I'm not sure who retired, but anyway, Jim went back onto shift, and then Brad and I, there was actually 2 retirements, and then both Brad and I got promoted, and Brad went on shift, and then I went in the administrative assistant chief and did hazmat and all the rest. So
what was your responsibilities in that position?
So we were in charge of not only responding, but then also working with all of the counties in our region, attending their local emergency planning committee meetings, and just updating the agreements and making sure everything was in place. And we were kind of the first contact if they had questions. You know, it might be just a phone call. It wasn't always a direct response, but sometimes they would call and say, hey, you know, we just got questions. We think we're doing this right. And, you know, the local fire departments could handle a lot of the calls if it was just, you know, a fuel spill or something like that. But a lot of times they would just call and they just want to make sure they're doing all the right things, making all the right notifications. And so there was a lot of that, and then just a lot of the policies and procedures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing with you, sir.
No, I did not do anything with USAR.
No, that was actually so. Technically, at one time, we actually had 5 assistant chiefs so your position. How long did we have the administrative assistant chief? How long was that position around for?
Oh, I'm trying to think of what.
Because like who had that before you? I guess.
Yeah, so that would have been Jim Allen that had that before me. And then I got promoted, and then Brad had done a lot of work as a captain with USAR.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he went on shift, then Dave Allers actually got promoted into that position.
Yeah, when they went back, because Brad went from assistant, he went to because that USAR position was like grant funded, so it was part from the city and. Part from the city and part from the USAR money funded assistant chief and basically Jen or Sue's position now. Mm-hmm. So it was that, and then slowly the state money went away. So then that position, and that's when Allers was in it. Because Brad went back on shift. Allers got promoted, went to there. That money dried up, and that position went away. But then they still funded the other secretaries. So he still kept Sue's position besides Jen and Carrie's position. But then I know, your position kind of again one of these that. Funds and money, whatever, kind of disappears. So that assistant chief's position left, and those duties then got kind of split up between Collins, what Collins does with the emergency management side of things, Asoff being the regional hazmat coordinator, and then the hazmat captain. So between kind of 4 people that kind of just got the duties got absorbed all over the place. But Chief Clark was super like all the hazmat stuff, went to all the meetings, did all this stuff. I mean, worked with Gary Brown a lot when Gary was both the emergency manager and ran Climbing Hill. And then that over time they split that, so the emergency county, Woodbury County Emergency Services is run different than Woodbury County Emergency Managers, just out of the TSI. So
I think actually a memory from my probation, we went out to kind of tour our comm center and stuff with the EOC. Used to have the big EOC room out there, and I think you were out there for a meeting actually. That's how I remember first meeting you while I was on the job. So, yeah.
You were the hazmat guy.
Yeah.
That's what Fox. By the way, Eric Fox wanted me to tell you how.
Oh, yeah.
And
We're
I
good.
asked,
Say hi to Eric
I
for me.
said, was he a hazmat guy? He goes, he was the hazmat guy.
Yeah, there
That's
you
right.
go.
Yeah, he'd go to the meetings in Des Moines and come back and bring us all kinds of stuff all the time. He'd be like, hey, here's some stuff.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, bro, I was always bringing back stuff.
That's awesome.
Lots of it.
So when you left Sioux City Fire, that position, then just kind of, that was when that changed.
Yeah, then they made changes, and as Phil was saying, they kind of split up some of the duties, but they didn't promote up to that position.
No.
Okay. When when did you take the position with Johnston Grimes?
So that was in October of 2016.
Okay.
There we go.
So you would have had well over 30 years as a firefighter at that point. So even just
Yep.
like pension wise and everything, there wasn't a whole lot more to climb.
No, and the fact that
I mean, not that was the main motivation. I was just
no, and you know, the fact Chief Everett was 10 years younger than me, I knew that there wasn't going to be another opportunity, and so I started looking elsewhere.
Where, and I know I asked this at the beginning. Where did the want to like really? I wanted to be I wanted the boss's job.
Probably as a captain, you know, I started looking at upward mobility, thinking, you know, I could probably do more. Went on and got my master's and EFO.
I was
And
to say executive fire officer
So-
too. I think were you the first one to get it on the department?
I don't know if I was the first one, but
Yeah,
probably one of the
ones.
first
Yeah,
ones.
one of the first ones to get it on the department.
No, I was
Yeah.
to
I
the
think Chief Hamilton was,
Okay.
but
National Fire Academy.
yeah.
Awesome. And then, so you took the job in 2016, and what's life been like for you in Johnston?
It's been busy. There's been a ton of changes. Johnston Grimes Fire. So when I started, they had just started a 3-year agreement to combine the fire department. 10 years before that, they had decided they were going to jointly hire and pay for a fire chief. But both Grimes and Johnston were completely separate departments. But they trained together, they tried to get their protocols in line, and so the chief was overseeing 2 departments, 2 budgets, and they said, you know, we should probably make this a more solid agreement and share not just the chief, but all the fire services. And so Johnston had built 2 stations, and Grimes was still operating out of their old station. And so they had to bring in a trailer, like a construction trailer, for him to sleep in, because it was built in 1980 as a paid-on-call type fire station with no sleeping quarters. And so that was when they first switched to 24/7 coverage. They had some, you know, people working 10, 12, 14-hour shifts that just kind of morphed over time. And then they were going to jointly, and they hired some personnel, they were going to jointly staff what we call the middle station, that they were going to staff an ambulance there. And so Grimes hired 3 people and Johnston hired 3 people so they could have one on each shift from each city. And that's where I came in and saw that how do you justify only an ambulance in the station if somebody's having a fire across the street? Say, yeah, we got a fire station there, but nobody's staffing a fire engine. And so we were able to convert some of the part-time money, because it was a combination department at the time, convert some of that part-time money and hire more full-time people without impacting the budget. So we were able to get 3 people in that station as a jump crew, which was kind of funny because when I was here and Chief Martin came, he was talking about jump crews, and I'm like, what do you mean jump crews? And he goes, well, you know, when you don't have enough people in the station to staff all the rigs that are there, you jump between an engine and an ambulance. And so that's what I walked into there, and so then I got very well versed at what jump crews were. And so we had jump crews in all 3 of our stations, and from there we worked through 3 years of that agreement. We were able to hire some more full-time people. We got to where last summer we finally got a longer-term agreement. We've got a 10-year agreement with with really an auto-renew clause in there, so unless somebody wants to get out, it's just going to stay this way for many years. But we started with 20 full-time people, and about 40 part-timers when I got there. In 2023, in November, we switched to all full-time. Wow. We were struggling. Our overtime budget was through the roof because we couldn't get enough part-time people. It was a revolving door, and it's a very competitive market in the Des Moines metro area.
Have a hard time over there.
And so as soon as people would get a little bit of experience, they would be taking tests, several different departments, and as soon as somebody had a full-time opening, the part-timers would leave. We did have a few that worked full-time for another department, which was great because they had a lot of experience. They'd come in and work, and you didn't have to worry about teaching them too much because they already had a lot of experience. But then there'd be times when all of a sudden, they got called for overtime on their full-time department. So then they'd call and say, "Hey, sorry, I can't work." So then we'd be mandating people to come back on double overtime for mandatory shifts. So it was a rough road. People were not happy. Everybody likes a little overtime, but only when it's convenient for them.
Only when it's convenient.
Not mandated. And it was kind of interesting because, like, when I was here in Sioux City, it seemed like a lot of the firefighters had a part-time job. They worked another job on their off days. And when I got to Johnston Grimes, that wasn't necessarily the case. A lot of the guys stayed home, took care of kids, and so that was really kind of a crunch for them to try to find daycare kind of last minute when they got mandated. So it created a lot of tension, and I certainly understood that. And so we finally sat down, looked at the budget, and just said, we've got enough money. We can hire 8 full-time people, and that kind of got us to where we needed to be. And we had some people leave, and so we ended up hiring 11 all at one time, which was just unheard of. We'd never hired that many in the history of Johnston or Grimes. And so they've all worked out really well. We've had 1 or 2 of those leave and hired 3 more. And then last summer we got authorized to hire another 3. So now we have a dedicated engine and an ambulance in one of our 3 stations. And then the middle station, we've kind of done some staffing changes and response model changes, but it just runs with just an engine, and it kind of chases ambulance on the 2 outside stations.
Sure.
And then when nobody's gone, we can actually have a second dedicated ambulance with the 3 people we hired last summer. So it's still very fluid and very flexible based on the staffing per day. Sometimes we'll have 4 in the station, and they can take 2 medical calls if the first call's medical in their district. But if the first call's fire call, 4 of them jump on an engine, and then we got no ambulance in that district. So we've got a large district. We've got about 54 square miles that we cover with 3 stations, which is
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
geographically, how far is Johnston from Grimes?
They share a border.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with the area, it's just a little bit east of Highway 141.
Okay.
Is the city limit line for both Johnston and Grimes.
So it's kind of, I guess when you think about, like, at that point when you're still, because it's kind of, I can't imagine you coming into, and I had a conversation with one of your guys when we went to DMAC for a recruiting thing, and that's where you realize that all the small departments in that part of the state, like, that's the biggest thing that, like, here, we worry about, we got to get people in to take our tests, but once somebody gets a job here, they stay here.
Yeah.
You're locked in, because the only other, you got Sioux Falls, you got Omaha pretty much for, like, big departments. So, like, we're it for here. Now it's getting people to come here and then work, but, like, your area, that's where, like, in all those small departments, every single one of them, the biggest thing is retention there, because they're like, everybody gets hired for a year or 2, and then they go to Des Moines, or they go to someplace back to their hometown where they really want to work, because they take all the same tests and stuff and go in. And that was the one thing the comment was made for. Well, one thing for you, they said the biggest thing, or one of the best things that you did, is you were very family oriented with everybody, and then that was greatly appreciated through the ranks. That everybody liked that about you, that you were very family was an important thing, but yeah, they said, for you guys, it's hard because it's a small department, the way it's operating, pay scale that you guys are lower on the lower end and stuff. And it's just retaining people. I can't imagine you going into there with coming from here, where we've got pretty clear cut, we got SOPs, we got OPs, APs, we got all this stuff, even when Martin started to change things a little bit. And, but I mean, it's a pretty well-oiled machine. and then to go into a different department where you got like 2 different departments, you're in charge of both, but different, operating procedures, different everything, and to try to make that all mesh into one thing, which seemed like, quite a challenge.
Quite the task.
Yeah, but, and why you couldn't just merge, if the towns themselves don't want to merge, what do you do? It's like, when we've got, South Sioux, North Sioux, Sergeant Bluff, and us here, but we're not merging towns and we're not taking over any of those departments. We're just, we got mutual aid agreements. But yeah, that's kind of you're kind of in a, I don't know, I guess with you talking to other chiefs and stuff, how unique is your chief's position compared to, like everybody else? Because I don't think there could be too many people that are like one chief for 2 different cities that are trying to make everybody, play nice and operate together,
Yeah, it was and it still is challenging. Everything was pretty much doubled. So I had a budget for Johnston and I had a budget for Grimes for the fire department. And so I was constantly going to council meetings, one every week. Johnston was the first and third Monday, and Grimes was the second and fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, dealing with 2 city councils, 2 city managers, twice.
Telling you how to do your job in 2 different towns.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, and I think probably what prepared me for that the best was the construction and working out at the security institute out there, where we started with 3 different entities: the city, the state, the county, and Western Iowa Tech. And so we started designing that building, and then right at the very end, they had a 7-person board, I believe. They had 2 council members, 2 board of supervisors, and 2 board members from the college. And then John Winkle was the 7th kind of at-large member. And then once we got the building all designed,
how did Winkle get on that as an at-large member?
I'm not really sure.
It just seems like just
really
like
sure.
that just seems like an odd curveball in there. Huh.
But and he was really good in the fact that he waited until the board had approved the drawings and the design and the budget and everything for the building, and then he said, "All right, now this is all done." He goes, "I want to propose something." He said, "This whole unexcavated part, so the computer labs all on the west side, all 3 of those classrooms was supposed to be slab on grade. They weren't going to have a basement under them." And he said, "How about if we pay for excavating and all the extra costs associated with that and build a secure data center underneath those rooms?" And so
that's why he was, because of long lines.
And so but he did not, there was not one indication that there was any ulterior motives to that. And so I thought he did a great job. I thought he was a class act in the fact that there was not one word about, hey, can we do this during any of that, until the finalized plans were all approved, the budget was approved. And so they paid for all of that on their own. I thought it was a great use of the space because it was a secure area. But just remembering all that we went through, all of the compromise and collaboration that happened when we built that building, I think helped me understand a lot of different politics, and the whole idea of collaboration when I went to Johnston Grimes really, I think, is what kind of made me excited about going there, and the fact that you had 2 different communities working together, which is unique for Iowa. It's not necessarily unique for the whole country. There's a lot of places in California and across the country that do consolidate services and share services, but it's unique for Iowa, and I think it's probably a model, and that's kind of one of the things that really excited me about it, and has probably made me stay up a lot of nights, a lot of sleepless nights. But no, it's been really good. And this longer term agreement, we've got a new city administrator that came to Johnston after the long time city administrator Jim Sanders retired, and he was really instrumental in pushing this longer-term agreement through. And so some of the recent changes are in January, all the employees came on the Johnston payroll, which was part of what was put out in the new agreement. And Johnston is the administrative city. And so now we have one budget. This year is kind of messy in the fact that both cities contributed 25%, so we had some reserve funds, and then they're contributing 1/12 of their entire budget each month. So come July 1, everything's going to be in one budget. So, and then actually all the equipment transfers over to the administrative city or Johnston July 1. So it's really going to be good. Both cities are going to contribute to the capital budget to purchase. We've got a brand new ladder truck, new Pierce ladder truck on order. They're actually going down this next week to approve the final drawings. And then we've got a rescue engine and a regular city engine all on order. A couple of ambulances. So
Cool.
we've had really good support from our councils as far as equipment, and then we're designing a new station for Grimes that'll break ground this summer.
I was just going to say, Grimes is always growing. Like,
Yeah.
my wife's from down around that area, so having just over the last, 10, 11 years driving to Des Moines, every time you drive through Grimes, because we would take 141 to get there, it's expanded out every single time. Farther out west and south is crazy. My little time I've been driving down there is like, holy cow.
2010 to 2020, they had about 82% growth.
Good Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, and Johnston had 38 or 39%
so it's still
in that
crazy
same
too.
time frame. Yeah.
Wow.
How many calls does the fire department respond to?
So we had just over 4,200 last year.
Okay.
If you know anything about that area, that's just insane how much that area is expanded and blown up.
4,200 calls and 54 square miles and stuff, and that's
she's
crazy. It's getting busy.
Dinging right along, just like ticking right along like everywhere else. That's wild.
What are a majority of your guys' runs that you guys are seeing? They're new construction areas, right? Kind of, these are newer towns, so fire EMS related.
Mostly,
I guess, yeah. What's
around,
your guys' biggest challenge?
Right around the
response?
80% EMS, and the cities have been adding on some senior living. We had a big new senior complex, similar to like Sunrise Manor. Matter of fact, they are building single-family homes right across the street from it as we speak.
Sure.
Those all, because of the nice winter we had, they got a lot of foundations in, and they're all up and moving along. But they have assisted living and memory care and all that on one campus, similar to what Sunrise Manor has. But that just got built in Johnston about 5 years ago, and we had a similar complex over in Grimes, and we knew that there's about 100 calls a year to that complex, and so we knew it was going to be the same. And then we've had 2 senior living apartments go up in Johnston, and we get a lot of calls to those. So we're pretty much consistent with everybody else in the metro, right around that 80% medical and 20% fire and other type of calls. But we're fortunate that we don't have a lot of actual fires.
Do you guys mutual automatic aid with everyone
we
kind of
do.
around you, though?
We do, and so similar, if you're familiar with like the box alarm system they have over in Illinois, and that we call it Teams, and that was named before I got there, but it's tiered emergency response system. So we will have we put together our own cards, and we decide who we want, on our first alarm, second alarm, third alarm, and so then that gets plugged into the CAD. And so for us, Urbandale is our closest mutual aid partner, so we go across the line with Urbandale. The unique challenge we've had has been communications, because we've got 3 different PSAPs. So Des Moines Police and Fire have their own public safety answering point or 911 center.
Sure.
And then Westcom has got West Des Moines and Norwalk and Waukee and Clive and Urbandale, and then Windsor Heights. and then pretty much all the rest of us on the north and the east side of the Des Moines area are dispatched by Polk County Sheriff's Department dispatch.
Okay.
So they just got a grant a little over a year ago to do CAD to CAD. So they bought some software and a central hub hardware that we're in the process of being able to dispatch across those PSAP borders. So for instance, a 911 call comes in right on the border of Johnston and Urbandale. They could dispatch our units as well as Urbandale units out of Polk County, or vice versa, or Westcom could dispatch us. So that's what we've really been looking forward to, because I said when I got there, there's something really wrong with this. We're waiting 3.5 minutes for our mutual aid partner to get dispatched.
Right.
And that was just
Kinda
because
defeats-
it was all human driven. So a call would come in, Polk County would dispatch us and other Polk County agencies, but then when they got a minute, they would have to call up Westcom, give them all the information. That dispatcher would have to type all the information in and then dispatch their units. And so we're getting really close. They're at what they call the aware phase now, where they can see each other's units. And then our hope is that by this summer, they'll actually be able to dispatch across those PSAP borders, and we won't have any delays.
Good
resources.
Yeah, good deal.
So a lot of the suburb fire departments, they have good relationships with Des Moines, I would assume, or does Des Moines stay in their
You
own
have
city
to.
limits?
You have to over there, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, when I got there, Des Moines was just starting to do more mutual aid type response, because Des Moines large enough for most of their fires. They realized, they could take care of them themselves. And the previous chief and chiefs had kind of always had that, kind of kingdom type attitude.
Yeah,
But Chief DeKipp has really reached out and made inroads into better relationships with all the departments. And so they really have a unique arrangement with Altoona over on the east side, because Altoona needs Des Moines for fire response. But before they built Station 11, they had a big area where they needed medical within a timely manner. And so Altoona would be sending an ambulance to meet up with a fire engine from Des Moines, but the ambulance was generally there first.
Gotcha.
But then when there was a fire, then they would get all kinds of resources from Des Moines as well. We've got a mutual aid agreement with them. It's not been used at this point, but it's there if we need it.
Sure.
Yeah.
If we need a truck from them, they're willing to send it.
There you
So
go. That's
great.
that's what you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the position you're in an operations chief as well? Do you go to incidences and run command?
I have been, but we are trying to, through kind of our succession planning, we've been giving more and more responsibility to our captains. With the additional staffing, we've been able to kind of pull them off of a rig and put them in a command car.
Very nice.
And put them in an office. And so they're really operating as a battalion chief
Sure.
at this point. And so that's kind of been my plan, is get them there and get them ready to respond. Matter of fact, the last 2 or 3 actual fires, I've actually run medical calls because I'm the only one that's not engaged in the fire.
Like, wait a
So,
minute.
Yeah.
What happened here?
Yeah, but no, it's been really good for them, and they've grown a lot. And I feel very confident that they can manage any of the incidents. And so the 2 deputy chiefs and myself will usually roll up, and if they're their first on scene, we'll just let them keep it, and we'll say, what do you want, and one of us will grab safety and one of us will grab accountability, or our operations officer or something like that, or grab Seaside. But
Very good.
it's been really good to see them grow and grow into that position. So when I first got there, that was one of the things I was told is, well, you're going to have to go to fires and run the fires. But over the last few years, we've really kind of expanded their ability to run calls and be in charge.
Yeah. Who doesn't love running a fire though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You said with the ambulance, how many ambulances do you guys staff during the day?
So with 3 stations, we can staff 3 up to 4 ambulance, depending on
Okay.
the
So you guys,
the
but you have
fluidity of
enough
the staffing.
because that's Johnston Grimes. There's no private service. There's no like
No.
if you guys don't, if all the ambulances are gone, somebody's waiting for an ambulance kind of
Yep.
thing. Unless you okay. So that's I was just kind of wondering. But yeah, at 3 or 4, you guys should be able to. It's no different than here. I mean, even with 4 on the street, it's usually even if they're all out, it's usually somebody's clearing the hospital pretty quick kind of thing. So I mean, we could get everything covered. So as far as that though, what about like your officers and stuff and drivers? Is it an FEO? Is it a promoted position? What do you guys have for your officers on your rigs? Like what's kind of like your structure look like?
So we've got the captains, and like I said, they're in a car now, more of a battalion chief role. And then we've got 2 of the 3 stations have promoted lieutenants. We're trying to get the 3rd station to get the promoted lieutenants. We've been kind of hung up the last year and a half on that, but that's one of the things. We just did some strategic planning yesterday, and that's one of our major goals is to make that happen. So the city has done a classification and compensation study, and I'm kind of waiting for the results of that so I can say, well, these guys are getting $1 an hour for acting pay. If we were to get them promoted, kind of offset some of those costs, but I'm not sure until we get the results of the classification and compensation study what the actual dollar is. And I'm hoping that it's something I can do kind of mid-budget without having to have it go through a budget process, but it still has to go to the fire board for approval because it's additional promotions. But I'm hoping that we can kind of show that the money is somewhat cost neutral. It's not a lot of expense, that we don't need additional funds in the budget to be able to do. So that way we'd have a lieutenant on every one of our rigs.
There you go.
Okay.
Nice.
Good deal. So then, in your staffing, if you can, 3 per engine, 3 per truck.
Yes.
Or just whatever you can get.
No, we have a minimum of 3 per engine.
Okay.
And then the middle station has a rescue engine and a ladder truck. And so, depending on the type of call, they usually, all the medical calls, they'll take in the rescue engine. But if it's a fire alarm, they'll take the ladder truck.
And those are all so that's the jump crew concept, basically.
They're jumping between the ladder and the engine, and the other crews are jumping between an ambulance and a fire engine.
And an engine. Jump crews. That's the thing.
It's funny kind of geographically where you're at in the state, because I worked at Fort Dodge for a little bit of time, and the captain ran the command car. We had a jump crew on the medical engine, and you jump to the ladder truck for commercial or higher grade fire. So kind of run a similar way, kind of
it's very
central part of the state.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
very common down
move out
there.
east and it's different, and over here's different, but so it's kind of sounds familiar anyway to me. But
You guys cover the fire EMS for Camp Dodge as well?
We do.
What kind of challenges does that bring?
the people that are there.
Besides those guys
it's
picking their nose. And
it's a large campus. We're usually met at the gate by security or somebody that knows where the emergency is, and then we'll go in there. At one time, they used to have their own fire department. I think they had several fire stations. I can't remember exactly how many, but back when they had a lot of troops coming through after World War II and that. But then over the years, they phased those out. Matter of fact, the last fire station that they had, the State Fire Service Training Bureau is actually occupying that building now. So yeah, and they were able to get a new fire engine through a grant. So we are not doing as much standby pumping for them when they do training burns and that kind of stuff up there. So
But that breaks your heart.
well, it's not bad. It's just that, once you're in the middle of that campus up there, it's a long response time to get back out the gate and the rest of the community.
It's huge.
And it's it can kind of be a cluster too, figuring out where you're going and buildings and such. So.
Yeah, Ben and I got lost a little bit on when we went to class.
We could find
the
the
Fire Service Training Bureau now that it's there instead of
I haven't
location.
been there since it's moved,
and it's and it's not either that or we just weren't paying good enough attention. But there was which Ben is a terrible navigator. He's okay. He holds the conversation, but we got on camp we had no idea because there's no big signs that say until we found it. I mean and it's buried in there. It is way back in the if you don't know where you're going, dude, we drove around.
Sorry, I'm late for class. It's not because I was out all night. It's because it's hard to navigate here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was. We just couldn't find the building.
Yeah.
But that campus is huge. Huge. It's neat. It's got some neat stuff on it, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make it down there.
Any big changes you'd like to see with Johnston before you leave as chief?
So one of the things we're really working on is, a long-term staffing plan. I presented one to the Johnston City Administrator, and so they have seen it. But now that the fire board, which is made up of 3 members from each community, 2 council members and the mayor, or the mayor can designate. So fortunately, Jess Dunn, the state training bureau chief, was appointed by Grimes to represent them. So we've got 2 council members and then Jess representing Grimes. He's lived in Grimes a long time. And so they have moved from a advisory type board to a decision-making board. So our next step is to do strategic planning with them and get them to understand the needs for increased staffing, and then hopefully get them to authorize certain staffing levels going forward, that we can start eliminating some of the jump crews and having some dedicated engines and ambulances and stations to where we can provide both fire and EMS service to those 3 different districts that we have on a much more reliable basis, and utilizing some of the kind of the national standard, the 1710 and the accreditation model, to show where our times are, and then set some goals on what they want those to be, and then use the data to show the additional staffing is what's going to require to meet those goals.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Kind of bouncing around here. Any memorable calls between your time at Sioux City as well as Johnston? When we ask this question, we kind of think like a lot of funny calls, or something that always makes you laugh, or maybe some serious moments that stand out that really impacted your career.
I think probably the one that hits the most would be the plane crash, 232. I spent 4 days down there. I remember, the news coming on and the phone ringing and saying, hey, we're doing an all call, and everybody got called in, and went to Station 1, and that's where I was stationed out of at the time, and thinking, okay, well, let's go. Everybody was chomping at the bit, and they said, well, it was parking issues, so we got a city bus coming, and so everybody waited and waited and waited.
It's gotta be tough.
It was about 45 minutes, I think, after the crash before we got down there. And then we put out a lot of spot fires. I mean, most of the work had already been done. The victims had either been rescued or determined they weren't able to be rescued. We put out some spot fires on the fuselage, and then we did a lot of walking. We walked the cornfields, we walked the bean fields. We just kept thinking we're going to find some more survivors, because there was some that had, got out of the fuselage, ran through the rows of corn, had no idea where they were at, ended up on a service road out towards the river, and then crews out there discovered them. People working on the airport, and then we're able to take them back. And so they just kept thinking there's probably some more people out there somewhere that just don't know where they're at. So we walked the fields over and over and over again until dark, and then they sent us home. Then the next day there was five or six of us, I think 6 of us, that all went down there, and they brought in a bunch of plywood and timbers, and we shored up the wings so that they could go in and safely pull the bodies out of the fuselage. And so the state medical director was there, Gary Brown, and some of his rescue crews were down there. We used their jaws of life, and we started cutting the seats out and pulling out bodies, and under the direction of the medical director, making sure everything was documented with pictures, and all the body bags were labeled correctly. And then they asked for volunteers to come down and work in the morgue. So I worked in the morgue for the next 2 days after that. So
what did that consist of?
So they used one of the hangars, and they brought in a lot of experts from the DCI, the FBI. They brought in some forensic doctors that could do dental x-rays, Some of them, they could do the jaws in place. Others, they actually cut their whole jaw out and then took the x-rays, and that was the job that I got to do for 2 days, because they said, well, we need somebody that we can train. I didn't take the teeth out. I just ran the x-rays through the little developing machine. They
Didn't know what you were getting yourself
No,
into.
they trained myself and then a nurse from Mercy Hospital on how to do that. So we would just take the x-rays, take the little templates and run them through the machine and print them out, and I have to try to put them in the card. And every once in a while, one of the doctors was really good, and there was another doctor who'd get frustrated when we have them in the wrong order. It's like, hey, I'm a fireman. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about
It's
teeth.
day one job.
So.
He's like,
It's my first day on the job. Just
But yeah, it was
job
quite an
descriptions.
interesting process. They put it together in the hangar, and they did a really good job of processing all of those people. But yeah, I just remember the day that we were taking the bodies out of the plane, and of course we didn't have PPE. We just had our bunker gear and everything. And I remember them bringing pizza, and so we threw some milk crates or something down, not too far out the back end of the plane, and we're sitting there eating pizza, and somebody walks by, and they're just like almost ready to throw up, and they're like, "How can you guys eat?" I mean, we just looked at each other and said,
Oh, we're hungry.
"It's free pizza."
you can't turn down free
That's
pizza.
such a fireman answer.
That's-
right?
And that was pretty much how it went. And it's like, this is just work.
Yep.
We didn't look at it as anything any different than fighting a fire or doing overhaul or anything else. It's like, we got a sign to go down there, and we just figure out what we got to do. And yeah.
I think that gets lost sometimes today. Like, you can't have a bleeding heart per se to really do the job for as long as like a person like yourself. I mean, obviously things get to certain people and don't, but we've done a huge thing here with like the peer support and stuff.
Yeah.
But to remember to not make it it's not your emergency.
Right.
You got to separate a little bit
Yeah,
from those things and just
and
go.
you
You have a
become-
job to do. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you become very good at compartmentalizing and
Yep.
just saying, hey, this is what I got to do now, and I'm just doing a job.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's good advice, and I'm glad thanks for sharing that part of the story, and that's good to hear. Good for people to hear.
Have we had anyone else on that was 232?
That's still on a job for 232. I think there's a few.
No, in terms of that we've had on the
show?
podcast here.
Lindblade.
talked
Lindblade was
about-
talking about it a lot because he took a lot of pictures and stuff down there. But outside of that, I can't think of anybody that we've had. Maybe Drew, maybe Dave, when Sheriff Drew, when he was was down there.
Yep.
I helped
That
out at some
sounds right.
point, but otherwise, not a whole lot that would have responded down there. No.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't talked to a lot of people at work. I don't think that were there. So
Well, yeah, it's just
I
'cause-
appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, well,
That was
'cause
your
when you came
stories
on,
of
'cause I
stories.
know, when I came on, just guys, Kinsey would talk about being down there all the time, and and some of the people that were in the movie and stuff were still on the job at that point, and so yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty big event for Sioux City. That's a big that's always that even now when running the new guys through hazmat and just going through for awareness, and we got a little bit more in depth, but just the different things that you look at. Oh, that's not going to happen here. It can't happen here. But it's like, no, we got
had
a
our
railroad
fair
bridge
share
that
of-
goes across the Missouri that we could have a train derailment into. I mean, it could happen here. We get a little bit of barge traffic. Who would have thought an airplane, that size, a commercial airliner, would have crashed and it did. So I mean, these things can
This
happen
city's seen
anywhere,
its fair share of things that shouldn't never happen anywhere, but
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
happens.
Terra explosion. That
Yes.
was
Yeah,
another big
Terra.
one.
That's a big one there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you there for that, Chief?
I did not respond to that, but I was on the job when it happened.
Okay. The fire. The fire. You know what the firehouse is like. A lot of pranks and laughs and jokes and anything that you remember some good times there.
Yeah, a lot of people getting wet. Yeah, I remember a lot of times, of course, old threes, we had the poles, and so people would be dumping buckets of water down on
the
people
poles.
and having water fights out on the apparatus floor, and We had a lot of good times.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, you were really in before the cell phone era. I was like TV era, but it's yeah. I don't know.
TV.
I don't know. Like, at what point were
you mean he was on the job where firemen actually sat around and played cards? Is that what?
Yeah,
you're
we don't have.
Okay.
We have 8 TVs in every fire station. Jim has a TV. Every room has one.
Yeah. Our gym doesn't.
Probably a little easier to. A little less distractions in the firehouse. You kind of had to entertain each other. Or else
We did.
entertain or kill each other.
We did, and we had a lot of fun. And yeah, I just remember old threes. We'd have to mop the kitchen floor every night after we ate, and you would have to sit and look through the screen door, because we had screen doors on the kitchen to keep all the flies and everything out from the apparatus floor. But yeah, everybody'd kind of line up and try to watch the TV through the screen door, wait for the floor to dry. So take the chairs and go back in there. And once everything was dry, yeah, we had one TV downstairs in the kitchen and one TV upstairs in the day room. That was it. So
some things never change.
That's right.
no.
I like that.
Yep.
And even though we didn't have cell phones, the telegraph, telephone, tell firefighter. I mean, there was times when, even though all we had was a station phone, that the word would beat the assistant chief to the next station of what was going on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people are,
Yeah. Some things never changed, even though you couldn't.
Yep.
Even though you couldn't text somebody, there was immediate notifications going on all the time.
Send a pigeon out to Sevens.
Yeah.
So it's a note tied to it. Any role models or people that had a big impact on your career that you can remember really shaped kind of maybe leadership style, or just inspired you to kind of take the journey you've been on?
Yeah, I think a couple of them. Bob Bridget, the training officer when I started, I think his caring and his ability to make everybody feel valuable, really kind of hit home. And then Captain Darrell Greeno was the same thing. He had a way of making you understand that he had high expectations and that he wanted you, to do your very best, but he did it in a way that he never belittled people. I mean, we joked, and he'd give everybody a bad time, but he wasn't a screamer or a yeller. If you screwed up, he'd look at you and you knew that you disappointed him, and so it just really made you feel like you wanted to please him and do it for the right reasons.
Sure.
But yeah, his demeanor and how he treated people really made me feel like that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I like that.
Threes needs those type of officers or people, and I know we can all sit in here, go around the horn and name those people that have been down there that you go, oh, yep, that's exactly who you described for me,
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear.
Yeah, when they can look at you and you just know it.
It's like commanding your respect without demanding it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And I think we can all name something like
Yeah.
that for sure.
Absolutely.
So
Did Grimes, when you went down there, because kind of when you were still here right before you left, we were kind of in that, I wouldn't say necessarily a transition, but we were building on some things. We brought the consultants in for the diversity stuff and doing some and kind of changing. Martin was changing some APs and OPs and kind of the way things we did, and then we were starting to almost like a kind of a culture change to what we've got now. Was there, what was Grimes? What was your Johnston Grimes kind of like when you got there? And did you kind of take some stuff that we started doing here and bring it with you and then just kind of try and build a culture and stuff? Or did you kind of feel like, as far as leadership change or leadership styles or officer development or anything, just for just, our CCP, Everett brought, CCP in, and we've kind of, and that's our, our mission and our foundation of everything. I guess what did you kind of bring to Grimes, or did you feel like it was pretty good, pretty solid, and you just shored it up?
I tried very, very hard to intentionally not make it Sioux City East.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to have its own culture. We had a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, even though it was a very young department. They had their ideas of how they wanted it to be. They had a very, very strong training culture. So I wanted to keep that going and encourage that. We still have that today. Matter of fact, when we were having some budget issues with, before we transitioned to all full-time, and even after that, just because it takes a while to get people, we have a clearance process before they can ride an ambulance and ride a fire engine. And so even though we hired 11 people all at one time, everybody thought it was going to be like an instant fix to getting everything under control as far as the overtime. And it took months for everybody to get cleared and be able to run calls. And so didn't happen as soon as everybody thought it was. It eventually happened. And our overtime just pretty much shut right down. But we kind of took control of the only thing we really had control over, and that was training. And so we kind of put a hard stop on sending people away to training and spending any money on overtime or any of that for training. And so that really hurt a lot of people. And so we've got back to where we're doing that. That was one of the things came up strong in strategic planning was, making sure that we keep our people trained and send them to schools and bring back information. And so even though we had a hard pause there for a while, we're getting back to where we need to be, I think. But we have a really strong training culture. We have a good fitness culture. We don't have couch potatoes. It wasn't like I had to go in and say, hey, we need to do this. They were already right on top of all that. So yeah, that part was easy for me. The biggest struggle has just been the politics of budgets and trying to get everybody to understand. And, and it's hard. I think it's hard for a firefighter to understand that, sometimes you got to be told no. Sometimes there just isn't money. We hear all the time, well, yeah, but, they spend all the money on parks and they do this and do that. And that's not my choice. And that's not even the city administrator's choice. I mean, those are the things that are important to the people that elect our elected officials, and they're the ones that have to make those choices and make those decisions and say, where do they want the money to go?
Was there anything that early on when you were the chief that you had some growing pains with that you thought you'd be, you wouldn't have to go through? Or anything that humbled you?
Yeah, I think I knew it was going to be challenging with two cities. I just don't think I really understood the depth of that at the time. And I mean, it's been good. I've enjoyed all of it, but it does get frustrating at times. It seems like because I have so many layers, I can maybe get one city council or majority of one city council to understand something, and then the other city council maybe looks at it differently. And so there's a lot of things that I've tried to kind of package and repackage and resell and try to get people to understand. And so I'm trying to get our people to understand that that's what they need to do. And whether it's creating a video that makes it very clear as to how something works or what's better, or how something is, takes less time to do with more people. I think it's one thing to tell people that, aren't in our business, well, yeah, this is how it works, because it's so simple to us because that's all we know. But it's like a foreign language to them sometimes, and it's hard to explain. And so I think sometimes our firefighters feel like maybe I don't articulate it well enough, and maybe that's true. But I think that sometimes they don't understand that because it's so simple and easy for them, because that's all they know, that it really is hard for other people to really buy in. And the days of the fire chief walking in and pounding on a desk and saying, this is what I need, and you better give it to me because people are going to die, those days are gone. I mean, they want data, and they want data-driven decisions, and they want numbers, and then sometimes you give them numbers, and they want more numbers, or they don't understand, or they want different numbers. And so it's really hard sometimes, even though we have data, and we've been working on our data, and we know we have some issues, and we're still trying to figure out where those issues are. We'll tell the comm center, hey, our software says that it took this long to dispatch us, and they'll go in, they'll look at the CAD and say, well, no, it didn't take that long. And I'm like, well, what's the truth? You know, where is the disconnect? And so we're still trying to work through a lot of those issues. And I think once we get there, it'll be much easier to sell. But it's the same as everywhere. Limited dollars. A lot of the legislative changes over the last several years have really hampered the cities in their ability to fund the general fund, which is where police and fire come out of. And so it's a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge to grow and to keep up with the growth. So,
yeah. Any throughout your whole career, any chapter of it that sticks out and says that was probably my favorite? That was a lot of fun.
You know, I think a lot of people have aspirations of moving up, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think probably being a company officer is probably the most rewarding on a day in, day out basis. You know, as a chief, you know, you look back and you say, oh, well, you know, I was able to hire some people, and so that was a win, or I was able to get a new piece of equipment, and that was a win. But, you know, as a company officer, you can have wins every single day.
Sure.
You know, you can have the light bulb go on in one of your crews that didn't understand something, and all of a sudden, wow, you know, now they get it. And that can be a win. And you can say, oh, well, we got to go out and we helped this old lady that really needed her help, and that's a win. And so I think probably the most rewarding is really being that company officer level. And so, you know, if people say, oh, well, you know, you've been a company officer for 10 years or 15 years, why didn't you promote up? It's like, maybe you were smarter than those of us that did, because you have a lot more control over your day, even though, you know, you're answering calls, you don't have complete control, but you really are closest to what most of us want to do, is help people. So
yeah, all right. You know, right now with Chief Everett retiring, a lot of, you know, drink and sit in the morning drinking coffee. You can always you play the game of, well, I wonder if this guy will put in for this job, or I wonder if this person would ever think about being chief. And the part that keeps coming up is it's a totally different job. You can have someone operationally that's phenomenal as a captain or a lieutenant, company officer level, but being a chief, that's just it's like you're the CEO of a company now versus how well do you run a fire scene or an EMS call.
Yeah, and I mean it is a lot of frustration. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of rewards, but yeah, I think company officer, if I was to say, you know, where should people strive to be? Yeah. You know, be a company officer.
It's like one of those, every time you go up, it's like, well, I expected it would be this much, but I didn't, but it's way more than I expected. It's because, you know, I would say like that driving spot, I would say like driving is if you get a driving gig, like that's it right there. You know, lieutenant, that first step is pretty fun. You finally get that promotion, but you know, even up to captain, there's days I work overtime or jump on even working overtime on the ambulance. It's like, dude, this is so much fun. Like I get just like you get on and you just go to the call and you're like,
yeah,
I'm one of you guys.
Like being on you know, sitting on the back and stuff where you're just riding and you're just like looking around and just like, oh, this is what the city looks like. It's such a different mindset than where, you know, and I think at the assistant chief level now, when you're worried about all this and you're managing how much more and how much administrative more stuff, and then, you know, to get up to the chief's position, you're just like, I think every now and again, everybody just wishes, man, if just to go back and just be a guy on the back again, you know?
Well, and everybody thinks that, oh, well, you know, you get to this level, you get to make all these decisions, you know, you're the boss. Oh, no, you're really not. You know, and that I think is probably one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of the young firefighters have, is that, you know, I've got bosses, and in my position, you know, I've got 2 city administrators, and then I've got 10 council members, and I've got 2 mayors, and so there's a lot of layers of people above you. And matter of fact, you know, I was talking with the 2 city administrators, and I said, you know, these people have this concept that you just get to make all these decisions. You don't have any bosses. And I said, but of course, you guys, you know, you're the boss. You get to make all the decisions. You don't have anybody above you. And they just laugh, you know, because it's like they got mayors and council members and citizens.
And all the taxpayers, all the citizens that they have to answer to and everything. And it's just, you're just kind of, like I said, every step up, it's you know, you think you know, you want to get there because you have a reason to promote you, and you want, but at some point, sometimes you're like, you know, you get to just remember what it's like to just be on the back of the rig and just sit with our old open cabs where you had the little bit of breeze in your face and some sun on your shoulders, and just like you I don't know. Sometimes I think you wish that away too fast, and then you forget. How
I
good
got
it
the
was.
nozzle today, and that's
Yeah.
all I got to worry
Yeah.
about. Or making the hydrant. That's what I'm going to worry about
Yep.
today. And,
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, every step up, it's just a little
and
bit
it's
more that you
your
get
captain now.
further from it.
Phil's got to run a daycare, so it's like
Just third shift. Well, just part of third shift.
Any advice you would give to new members in the fire service in general?
I think biggest thing is just be happy where you're at.
Yeah.
The whole grass is greener on the other side isn't really true. Put the time in, put the effort in, enjoy where you're at. I remember somebody asked me one time, because like I said, I'd tried for the chief's position here twice and got passed up. And, he came to me and he goes, because he'd got passed up and it was a different profession, but he was pretty dejected, and he's like, man, I really thought I was going to get it this time. And he goes, how do you do it? And I said, did you have a good job yesterday? Didn't you like your job that you had? He goes, yeah, I loved it. I said, but what changed? I said, you're still doing it. I said, you got to look at where you're at and not look across the fence and think something's better or be disappointed if you don't get promoted. Because if you love what you're doing, you're still doing it.
Yeah.
And I think
great
that's what a
advice.
lot of people forget, is that if you're a driver and you're happy as a driver, but you think that you're going to be much happier if you get promoted, and you get passed over and you don't get promoted, and you're dejected, and and the world sucks and everything else, it's like, wait a minute. Last week
you loved it.
you were loving it. So be in the moment, or be in the present, and don't always think that something else is going to make you happier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the best advice I can give, is just live in the moment.
Yeah.
Be happy where you're at. Strive to get better. There's nothing wrong with aspiring to get promoted, whether it's lieutenant or captain or all the way up to the chief, if that's what you think. But if you think that it's going to make you happier, it's probably not. It's going to bring on different challenges, more stress, and everything else. But if you don't make it, don't look at yourself as a failure. Look at it as, hey, it's out of my hands. It wasn't my choice. I did all I could, and that's the way it is. If there's things that you could have done better, learn from it. Test better the next time. But yeah, just be happy where you're at, because it isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice.
I like that. I was going to ask any advice to company officers, but I feel like that kind of
That covers
Yeah.
it.
covers
That's
really
good.
all of it. So.
Yeah.
I like that. You mentioned about 12 months left as chief. What's kind of the future after, and what do you like to do for fun? What does Jim Clark do for his hobbies?
Well, I like to fish, I like to hunt, and I like woodworking. And so I've been able to do all of those throughout my entire career, but not to the level that I want. I mean, I've always got projects down in the shop, and I get started, and then I don't get to finish them and get back to them. So, yeah, that's what I look forward to. A lot of people always, I think, worry about retiring, because it's like, I've been so busy, and what am I going to do? I got so much to do. I am not worried about retirement.
That's a great
so,
position to be
Yeah.
in.
Perfect.
yeah.
What do you like to fish for?
Fish, Ben.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go to Canada. We walleye fish once a year.
That's really cool.
We've got a youth fishing league. It's a bass fishing league in the Des Moines area, and so I volunteer boat for them. So I take kids out on my boat,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
we fish a tournament.
I love
We
that.
leave early in the morning and catch them, weigh them in, and it's a big deal. The people, the husband and wife that started this, have really done an excellent job of bringing in. I mean, there's kids from all over the state. We fish 10 to 12 tournaments a year, our own tournaments, and then there's also other tournaments that they can go out and fish as well. So anywhere from Okoboji to southern Iowa to the Mississippi River. So it's fun. And so
Fantastic.
a lot of times I get a lot of the younger kids. We have junior division from 7 up to 14, and then they have the high school division from 14 on up through graduation of high school. So
Perfect. Yeah. Going to stick around in the Des Moines metro area
Yeah.
post retirement, or are you going to try and maybe find a
You
Like a
know,
lake
I
house
don't
or
know.
something.
Well, we actually did buy property down on Table Rock Lake in
Oh wow,
Branson.
Down in
good for
Branson.
you.
We've got a right now it's just a Morton building with a little apartment inside it, but it's 3/4 of an acre. It's right on the lake. We got our own.
Man.
We share a slip with our neighbor, but so we can just walk right down and get in the boat when it's down there. But
You and Jared
We're
Bear
not-
and Chuck and all
we're
be
not-
What are
getting
you-
breakfast.
yeah,
and
what are you
getting
waiting for?
Coffee
I mean,
in the mornings, right?
yeah.
You're going tomorrow. No,
Yeah.
it's really
So
cool.
anyway, no, that's kind of the plan. But kind of dealing with some aging parents right now, and not really sure if we're gonna, make the move and go down there full time, because it's about a 9-hour drive from here. It's
Sure.
6 from the Des Moines area, but it's kind of nice being 3 hours away if I got to run back here for my parents. And my wife's not 100% sure that's where she wants to retire. So the nice thing about having the place that we have is, it's there, it's paid for. We can go down, enjoy it, and if we decide to build, we've got land on that lot we can build. And if we don't, I think it's still probably a good investment, and
Yeah.
we can go down and enjoy it when we can. So
Yeah.
it'll be nice.
If you want to put it out for rent for a bunch of Sioux City firemen to go down and for like a week or something, we'd
Yeah.
be more than happy to pitch
That's
what
in
they
for that.
almost
Maybe
need
1
a-
week out of the year.
The place will be destroyed and fixed by the time it's gone. It's crazy.
You could almost start it like a Sioux City Fire members group down there with all the guys that retire and have.
Oh,
places
don't
down
just
there and
make it to
stuff
Sioux City. Open it up to Johnston Grimes guys too.
right.
Let's
Just
make a
say-
deal
yeah.
out of
It
this.
is
huh?
kind of
With those
interesting.
guys
There
that are
are
down there.
several fire chiefs in the metro area and several firefighters in the metro area that have places down there. And
Yeah, it's a place.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like property tax, everything's cheap. Even to buy a house on Table Rock's not too bad and stuff. And that lake is awesome, gorgeous, warm, clean. Yeah, it's a good area.
I know Jerry Bennett. He's got a place down there, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bennett's got a place. Chuck Heinrichson's got a place down there, and Hirsch was down there. Is he down there now or was
No,
for a while?
I think he
had
came
a-
back.
the Carolinas.
Did he?
Carolina. Yeah, there
Back
you
and
go.
forth, but he did have a place around that area for a little bit.
Yeah,
And
he did.
Mark Roth's down there.
Yep.
Yep, he's
yeah.
across the border down in Arkansas.
Yep. Yeah.
Any
Cool.
you mentioned you're in touch with Chief Everett. Any guys around here you still talk to? Stay in touch with?
I still come back and deer hunt with
I know a group you
with
hunt
Andy
with, yeah.
Cohn, Brad Robinson,
Okay.
Tim Wilson. So yeah,
Yep.
Perfect. You mentioned your wife. What does your family look like? And what does your wife do?
so she's retired, but she does some part time. She worked for the school district here. She was out at the operations and maintenance, the bus barn. She was secretary out there when we moved, and I told her, I said, well, if you don't want to work, you don't have to. And she keeps saying, well, you told me I could retire. And she's got a couple part-time gigs. She substitutes for the schools once in a while as an assistant, and she's got another part-time job she does. But yeah, she has 5 kids, and I've got 2, and so we've got, I think, about 19 or 20 grandkids.
Wow.
One of her kids has got some foster kids. So, but yeah, when we look at all, so
Man.
she's got 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Texas, and 2 in Phoenix, and 1 in the Tucson area. So she spends a lot of time traveling.
Is that enough to keep you busy?
Matter of fact, she's in Phoenix today, and she comes back Sunday. She's been down there for about a week and a half. So
All right.
Good
Yeah.
deal. Well, you guys got any questions for the chief?
I know a lot of people say hi. My dad and
Yeah.
grandpa and
Great.
all the guys from Threes, Dusty Johnson, Ryan Dykstra, and they all
good.
wish you well.
Good.
And
Matter of fact, I just posted Lamar's is hiring in my update
Oh,
today. So
perfect.
I do a little Friday Chiefs update, and I'd got that through one of
Awesome.
the other chiefs. So yeah. So if anybody
There you
wants
go.
to go up and work full time in the ice cream capital of the world,
There you go.
Yeah.
World
Yeah,
Series.
good.
Hey.
What a chief! He's even recruiting for another department.
Yeah,
All
hell,
that guys could leave
shameless
his department
plug.
and go
That's
up there.
good.
Yeah.
Plymouth County. Good
Yeah.
place.
God's country.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time again.
Yeah.
You made
Absolutely.
the drive all the way up here. Sorry, you also had some dual circumstances.
Yeah.
You said visiting your
Yeah.
dad. Hopefully, he recovers very well and gets out of the hospital plenty soon.
Yeah.
But other than that, enjoy. Oh yeah. Any relationship to Caitlin Clark? She's from the Des Moines area.
No, I have a daughter named Caitlin Clark. It's spelled different, but it's not the same.
That's
Caitlin
got to
Clark,
be
so.
fun going to school with that.
Yeah.
Her,
Yeah.
Oh yes. You said your daughter, not granddaughter.
No, my daughter.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
gotcha. Well,
Yeah, that's tonight, right?
I'd claim
Yeah,
that one.
yeah,
Yes,
tonight.
it is.
You
Yeah, I
got
got
tonight at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, right?
We've got a watch party going on somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
That's
right.
Be a big game.
Me,
tonight.
my brand new baby, and my other kid.
There you go.
and
Yeah,
my
that was the
wife.
other thing.
That's the watch party.
Congratulations to the shippers.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because we
Ava
plugged him
Shipper.
because we plugged him last
Yeah,
show. He wasn't
I watched
there,
it.
but that
I
baby
watched
didn't
it.
come then. though,
No,
right? It's a couple
dang
days
it, we
later.
got pushed.
Yeah, but
So,
it's healthy.
here.
10 toes, 10 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good. Looks like her mother, so she's blessed. So
Yeah.
Good.
Good deal.
yeah, very good.
Yeah, that'll help a little bit, right?
Awesome. All right, Ryan, let's go ahead and close this out and play the tones for us.